Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and the Evolution Revolution. And this is our weekly Sunday book discussion group. And we have been doing this for quite some time. We're reading The Storm Before the Calm by Neale Walsch. And Linda is our gracious and really good reader. So Linda, if you'll get everybody on the right page, so to speak, and literally, we'll take it from there, or you'll take it from there.
Okay. So we're reading The Storm Before the Calm, Conversations with Humanity, Book 1. We're on conversation number 17, and that would be found on page 113. We're about 42% done with this book. So conversation 17 is when the first domino falls, the rest will follow. I'm sure that you can see from that one look at our cultural story why our world is in the shape it's in. I'm sure you can see that this story is neither beneficial nor sustainable. This then is why I propose a global movement to change our cultural story, to explore it line by line and to rewrite it where we believe it serves us to do so. But now, please understand, I'm not proposing a global conference or a global convention or a global congress, which would meet and propose such changes. We've already tried these approaches and they have not worked. The League of Nations did not prove effective. Neither has the United Nations brought an end to the oppression of the masses, the killing of thousands, and the suffering of millions. A new worldwide Congress of Humanity would do no better. The problems of humanity reside in one place where most leagues and congresses and senates and legislatures and conferences and political conventions refuse to go: the realm of spirituality. Well, they shouldn't go there. There should be a separation of church and state. Religion should have nothing to do with politics and vice versa. What should really have nothing to do with politics is economics. That's where the danger is. These two should never be allowed to mix. There should be a law that says that all political decisions made in the halls of legislatures and congresses and senates may not be based on or take into account any economic considerations whatsoever, but be founded in one thing and one thing only: what is best for the largest number of people. There should be another law that bars any contributions of any kind to political candidates or parties of any economic interests. In other words, companies or corporations, or any firm representing any economic interests. There should be a third law that simply states that corporations are not persons and shall not be accorded equal rights as those accorded to people. This one law alone would solve so much. Everyone in the United States is so intense about maintaining a separation between church and state, when the real concern should be about keeping a separation between corporations and state. Because in America, and most of the rest of the Western world for that matter, economics is the real religion. What should really have nothing to do with politics is economics. That's where the danger is. People believe that their personal life is threatened at the most basic level if political decisions are made that appear to impinge, even the slightest way, upon their economic choices, even when those political decisions are demonstrably for their own good, such as basic government regulation of the healthcare system, or government moves to guarantee safety in certain manufacturing fields, or regulations that protect consumers in certain food processing, storage, and shipping industries, to use a few examples. Anything that regulates the business community and the economic system is seen as limiting basic American freedom. Yet when that economic system itself limits people's choices, such as virtually monopolizing particular areas of commerce, airlines, computer software companies, among others, come to mind, locking out all competition, then setting the rules of the game and refusing to create compatibility between their products and those of others, so people must make a forced buy to get what they want in the so-called free marketplace. When the economic system does that, this is called the free enterprise system, and we don't care how much we are abused by it. This is real freedom. The economy was meant to be a way for members of a community, including the global community, to help each other. You do this for me, I'll do this for you. We'll share the wealth that comes from sharing our individual gifts. But it has turned out to be a way that people in the world get hurt. Most people, the majority of people. Believe it or not, the economy was never meant to control our lives. A tiny minority of people are served and enriched by the economy, but the majority of people are enslaved and subjugated by it. Believe it or not, the economy and economics was never meant to control our lives, but to control them it does. Even, and perhaps most especially, our political system is tyrannized by it and beholden to it. And so the control of commerce over community is complete. We've allowed it to be, and that as much, if not more, than the mixing of church and state is the real threat to our freedom. But I digress. I want to talk more about this in the later part of this conversation, which deals with specific ideas that could fit into our future cultural story. For now, getting to your question directly, I want to say that you are right. Religion should have nothing to do with politics, just as you say, but spirituality should. Remove one, but not the other. The Conversations with God dialogue offers quite a bit of commentary about the separation of church and state. It may indeed be decided in some countries that church and state must be separate, CWG notes. Could everybody just remember to mute themselves? We're getting some background noise. Based on results, people may determine that religion and politics do not mix. But, says this remarkable dialogue, spirituality is another matter. Do not imagine that spirituality and politics do not mix, CWG says. Politics are spirituality demonstrated. Political decisions represent, or at least are supposed to represent, the highest values held by people. And if the living out of our highest values is not what spirituality is all about, then what is it all about? Conversations with God goes on to observe, quote, the reason you may decide that church and state should be separate is that church means a very specific theological point of view, a particular religious belief. You may have observed that when such particular and specific beliefs inform your politics, you create great controversy, resulting in political strife, close quote. Spirituality is life and all that life is. I have seen this in America on issues such as gay marriage, abortion, and even something as purely scientific and obviously beneficial to humanity as stem cell research. Everywhere on the planet, religion has produced equally contemptuous intrusions into the lives of people, the religious and the non-religious, through its mixture with politics. On the very day of writing this paragraph, I happened to read on the internet that the people of Malta had just then voted to permit divorce in their country. Now there is only one country left in the world, the Philippines, in which divorce is against the law. Not against the law of the church, against the law of the land. The referendum on Malta passed with just over 53% of the population approving. In other words, it almost failed. How in the world did a law exist so long in this country? 4 words: the Roman Catholic Church. News reports said that at Mass in Catholic churches all over Malta on the day of the referendum, a letter was read to all the congregates from the Bishop of Valletta, stating that the people should vote no in the referendum. Such religious pressure was a significant part of the No campaign, news reports said, with posters all over the island reading Jesus yes, divorce no. Under the same influence of religion in politics, Ireland only passed its own law legalizing divorce in 1995. There, the move required an amendment to the Constitution. And so it is easy to see how divisiveness, sometimes bitter, vitriolic divisiveness, results when political and religious views mix like this, for the simple and obvious reason that not all people hold the same religious beliefs. Indeed, some people hold no religious beliefs at all. But we're not talking about religion. We're talking about spirituality. The experience of spirituality, Conversations with God says, is universal. Every human being on the planet has felt, at one time or another, a natural impulse for knowing of and reunion with the divine. Some have talked themselves out of it. Others have moved even more fully into it. Not a single person has never felt it. For this thing called spirituality is the call of life itself. It is life, calling to life, to experience and create more life. That impulse resides in every living thing. Says Conversations with God, all people participate in it, even if they do not know it, even if they do not call it that. This is because spirituality is nothing more than life itself. One's spirituality is about one's deepest personal understandings of and interactions with life and God, whatever those may be. They may be mystical and they may be practical. A person's experience does not have to be mystical to be spiritual. Spirituality is not about a particular group's teachings and doctrines. It is about the values, ethics, and deepest experience of the individual, not the theological dogma of the club. The most basic tenet of spirituality is that all things are a part of life. How can anything that appears in life, physical and non-physical, including understandings, beliefs, and behaviors, not be a part of life? You can argue all you want whether there is a God and whether all things are part of God, but you cannot argue about whether there is life or whether all things are part of life, the CWG dialogue Riley observes. Spirituality is, therefore, life and all that life is. The only discussion then left is whether life and God are the same things. And the dialogue informs us they are. The dialogue continues that says that even an agnostic, even an atheist, would agree that there's some force in the universe that is holding it all together. There is also something that started it all. And if there's something that started it all, there must have been something existing before the universe as you know it existed. The universe didn't just burst into being out of thin air. And even if it did, thin air is something. Even if you say that the universe burst into being out of nothing at all, still you must deal with the question of first cause. What caused something to arise out of nothing at all? In my conversation with God, I was told that this first cause was life itself, expressing in the physical, that is, visible form. Some people call this the Big Bang. Whatever you call it, it was life exploding into physicality. No one can disagree with this because this is obviously what's so. You can, however, argue forever, and you have, over how to describe this process. What to call it, says CWG, does not equivocate. This is God, it says. This is what you mean, what you have always meant by the word God. God is first cause. Unmoved mover, that which was before that which is. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Connecting the dots. If spirituality is really another word for life, then that which is spiritual is life-affirming, because life is life-affirming. Remember when I said that life is nothing but energy, that is pure energy that circles back onto itself. I observe that when life is a true fueling, self-sustaining, self-determining, and self-creating process, it depends on life. It relies on life itself, looks to itself to tell itself what the next expression of itself shall be. In other words, life is life-affirming. This is true universally. It is true globally. It is true nationally. It is true locally. And it is true individually. It is merely a matter of proportion. And so we see the universe deciding about itself in this way, our planet deciding about itself in this way, our nation deciding about itself in this way, our own city or community deciding about itself in this way, and our own person deciding about itself in this way. We observe that life informs life about life through the process of life itself. To inject spirituality into our politics would therefore be to make all political activities and all political decisions life-affirming. Indeed, is this not exactly what we are trying to do with our politics? The only reason we created politics in the first place was to produce a system by which life could be lived harmoniously, freely and happily, and peacefully. In other words, a system by which life itself may be affirmed. I must admit that had I never thought of it quite that way until I had my conversations with God, but then I saw that this is exactly why humanity created political systems. Of course. In the United States, the Founding Fathers even said so explicitly. The U.S. Constitution declares that all men are created equal, with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Most governments elsewhere were created for basically the same reason. There may be differences in the form, but never the purpose of government. Different cultures and societies may spell out differently their ideas and goals and how to achieve them, but their fundamental desires are nearly identical. We see then that spirituality and politics obviously mix, given that spirituality is about values, and so are politics. The latter is based on the former. Yet every time a country's government has been used to enforce a particular religious point of view, the result has been oppression of all those within that country who do not adopt that religious view. and often, by the way, war with people outside that country. I agree, I see this too. I see some nations forcing religious doctrine into people's lives through draconian civil laws, resulting, for instance, in the flogging of women in public, who are seen sitting in a public place next to men who are not husbands or blood relatives, or men having their shops closed because they have not grown a beard. It is why most people in most nations around the world have told themselves that spirituality is the realm of the individual and should have nothing to do with the collective governance, even though they want their collective governance to reflect the highest values of the individual. It's a catch-22. So creating a new cultural story that would simply replace old limiting beliefs and ancient ethno-specific behavioral rules with revised limiting beliefs and new draconian behavioral rules will do nothing to help the world. What is needed is a brand new set of beliefs, utterly different from the old and capable of being embraced by the whole of humanity, not only by certain religious groups. Points I'll hope you remember. Religion should be kept out of politics, but not spirituality. Life informs life about life through the process of life itself. The new cultural story cannot simply replace old limiting beliefs and ancient ethno-specific behavioral rules with revised limiting beliefs and new draconian behavioral rules. Actions I hope you'll take. Write a letter to your legislators urging them to remove business and commerce from politics. Join a global movement to do so. Work in your community to inject more spiritual values into the political decisions being made there. Become politically active rather than passive, so that it isn't others to whom these decisions are left, but to you. End of chapter.
Linda, who'd like to begin?
I would.
Okay, go for it, Shabana.
Thank you. In Canada, there's been a story in the news which is absolutely remarkable. A young Indigenous man walked 600 miles to the Saskatchewan legislature and set up a teepee for 44 days. He decided to fast and pray for the people who've committed suicide in the north. And I heard on the news this morning that there's a conflict between the municipal police force and the government, the provincial government, because the Sask party won't, I mean, they're being called the old white men or something, you know, like they're being accused by the municipal police force of breaking off the dialogue. So this is the example of a young man praying and fasting for 44
Anna, could you just repeat that, what you just said? You broke off here for me, just the last bit about what party is it and what was...
The provincial government and the municipal police force are in conflict because the municipal police force is saying these old white guys are telling the man not to pitch his tent on their lawn. And that doesn't promote dialogue. So the story boils down to this, that one man has decided that his political Sorry, go ahead, Angela.
I'm sorry, I'm having problems today with connection. I asked you a question. I don't know whether you heard me because I actually lost my connection. I didn't hear the last bit of what you said about, I'm not sure what the name of the party is and what the last bit of what you were saying.
Okay. It doesn't matter what the party is. All they're saying is stop the old enforcement of laws where spirituality is absolutely anathema to the old white men running this country. Nobody cares about Aboriginals who have committed suicide. Nobody could care less that this young man is fasting. Just get him off the lawn, that's against the law. And the police force is saying, forget it. We won't do it. End of story. And they're saying that he can park there as long as he wants. They will not get him off the lawn of the legislature. So the bottom line is exactly what this chapter right here is saying, that our activism means that life is God and God is life, that spirituality prevails, and there's no one religion or one group of old white men who are going to make the rules. I was impressed that Linda read this, and it applies so much right here in Canada, where the Aboriginals have been mistreated to the extent that at the age of 10, most Aboriginals want to commit suicide because they take it personally. They think that the world is in a mess because they, the 10-year-old, are breathing. So let me just kill myself and then the world will be better. That's what they've been led to believe. And it looks to me like that has come to a screeching halt in Saskatchewan.
Thanks, Giovanna. And are you surprised?
I am amazed. I'm not surprised. As is everyone else. Like absolutely everyone is amazed that a 24-year-old walked 600 miles, 600 kilometers, I don't know how long he walked, but that his faith and his belief in truth has taken down the Saskatchewan government's desire to put him in jail for deliberately breaking the bylaws.
Didn't a similar thing happen in Tiananmen Square when that young man stood in front of the tanks and refused to move out of the way? That was probably in the 80s, wasn't it, or the 90s?
I don't remember that. I'd be grateful for you reminding me, Brenda.
In China, when the students were protesting against the government, and one young man ran out in the road when there were tanks coming down the road, and he stood in front of the tank, and every time the tank went to move, he moved to counteract the move, if you like. And it's a very famous incident. I can't remember what decade it was in. It may have been the 90s, actually. But he actually sort of, just made a point that even though you've got your tanks and I'm just a human being, I can still stop you from moving forward, if you like. I think that. Yeah,
I remember it well, Brenda. I think it was
yes.
Tiananmen Square, wasn't it?
Tiananmen Square, yes.
Tiananmen Square, yes, that's right. Was that 91? Around about 91.
It was in the
Did,
90s, yeah.
did the man survive, Brenda?
Yes, yes, yes. Because they gave in to his, they
Willing to
couldn't
kill
move.
himself.
It was
Yeah.
just one man in front of all these. Well, it was one tank in the lead, but there were many tanks behind. But he refused to move, and of course the tank couldn't move past him, because every time they went to move, you know, say right, he went right as well. And yeah, it was a great stand against the military, if you like, or whatever you want to call them in China. Yeah.
Well, what I find impressive about it, Brenda and Mohan, is that the man survived, because so many hundreds or thousands, nobody knows how many, but a lot of people got killed.
Right. Well, unfortunately, in the case of the young student in Tiananmen Square, no one's really sure what happened to the young man after he did what he did. And some people think that he was actually arrested, and but no one really knows what happened to him. So that's pretty sad, really.
That is
But you
really
know,
sad.
sometimes
Forgot
we
about
come
that.
here, sorry, sometimes we come here, don't we, to the planet to just make, to you know, for a purpose. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. We come here for a purpose, and once we've achieved our purpose or fulfilled it, and we pass away, maybe. It's, you know, it could just be for one moment in one time.
Absolutely, Brendan. CWG says that. I can't recall where it is, but or which book, but God says that to Neale, that the person who's lived for 10 days or whatever, they've lived for 10 days. You know, they've lived and they've done what they've had to do. They came here to do.
Right.
So absolutely, what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there is also, I'm not sure if it is in CWG, but where someone can live their whole life as a rotten person, you know, like made no friends, was mean and goodness, but on his or her deathbed, actually said, "I'm sorry," just before they passed away. She passed away, and you know, so it you know, it took a whole life for him, a lifetime for him to actually come to terms with the fact that maybe he didn't live the best of who he was, so to speak.
The grandest version of the greatest vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what I find interesting here in Canada is that the whitewashing is professional, and there is so much discrimination and violence against the Aboriginals, whose land was taken illegally. Like, there were treaties made which the Supreme Court has upheld, but they still won't give the land back. And now for this young man, like the one that Brenda's mentioned, for him to get in there and pray and fast for only the fact that his people are committing suicide, and even the government, I mean, the municipal police refuses to charge him. It's a huge difference. And here in Canada, they can't begin to see the Aboriginals as being as valuable as regular folks. I think that this planet is moving into a different inclusion policy, quite the opposite of the othering, which has been so common in the past. That's what I feel we're going to witness more and more.
I would say that we spoke before some weeks, months ago, about critical mass, and someone, I think it was someone on here, on our call here, that said that we had reached critical mass. And I passed the message on to another group that I am in. So I'm just interested in whether people think that we have reached critical mass, and also on, we all know that the 1% own however much of the world's wealth. We know that. I don't know the exact figure, but we know the 1% have got the monopoly of it. And on page 115 of what we've just read, a tiny minority of people are served and enriched by the economy, but the majority of people are enslaved and subjugated by it. So basically, that's where we're at. We've got the 1% with the wealth, and we are enslaved and subjugated by it. So if we have reached critical mass, maybe we're on the road to changing that. I've had a feeling in my bones, and I'm just wondering people's opinions on that.
I think we have reached critical mass, to be honest. Energy wise, if it's, because there's so many layers to our existence. But if I understand it, we have reached critical mass, but obviously I can't prove it, but I just feel we have. I honestly do feel we've turned around and we are actually on the right track, so to speak.
I think I think there's definitely a shift in consciousness going on, and that's evidenced by, Shabana's story just now. The fact that the police are not just blindly following the instructions of their superiors, the old men who tell them what to do or pass it down through the various levels.
Yeah,
that's evidence. Yes. So critical, yeah. I don't know, critical mass, but I also think that it's not 1% that enjoy 99%. It's 0.01%, of the 7.5 billion. It's a handful. It's nothing. We're talking maybe 1,000 people. It's tiny fraction of 1%.
Well, just here in the UK, for those of us that live overseas, we're going to start a sort of partial lockdown as from tomorrow. The government have said no more than 6 people can gather. But I was just on Facebook before I came on here tonight, and the Save the Children organisation have organised a mass rally in London on I think it's the 21st of September. So this could be the defiance finally coming forward. Because in the UK we've been pretty low key. I mean, it is revving up a bit, but if this rally goes forward, and it was like a really big advert, so if it does, then this could be the beginning of the real turnaround, if you like.
Yeah, in total defiance of the 6-person gathering. Yeah, it'll be great.
Yes.
That's what we need.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mohan, you're saying you're against the 6-person gathering limit?
I'm against it, yes. Just as I was against wearing masks, because you're breathing in your carbon dioxide, which causes hypoxia and all sorts of other, you know, issues
All
that
right,
are far worse.
stop.
But we won't go
We're not
down
going to
there.
have
We
this
won't go down there.
discussion.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We're not going to have this discussion.
Okay, well, you asked me about,
I
you know,
just
if
wanted
was
to clarify it because it's so shocking, but go ahead.
Well, I just don't like being told what to do with this, this whole, I don't believe the authorities who tell me what to do know what they're doing themselves.
I'd like to just get back to the 0.1%. What is it, 0.1% that, like it's a lot less than the 1% that owns everything. It appears to me that the example that Brenda and Mohan came up with to agree with the young man here in Canada who has packed up his tent and left. One person, I don't know what it works out to, 1/8 billion, but each one of us is God and we're strong. We've got power. We've got the same power as God itself. So these young men represent the power of one individual.
Now, can I just ask you a question? Did you hear this information by the mainstream media or YouTube, or someone told you? How did you hear this news?
On CBC Radio, that's the National Public Broadcasting Network, the same as the BBC or NPR.
Oh, okay. Is it a reputable station?
Yes.
It is. Okay. Because a lot of these things are being hidden by the mainstream media. That's what I'm trying to get at. You know, it's usually the last place you're going to get any information from. But if that's not the case in Canada, then, you know, that's fine.
Anybody else?
I just want to agree with what Shabana just said about the young man's power, because when you were telling the story, Shabana, that was the thought that came to me. That is God within him, basically. The same as the young man in Tiananmen Square. That is God at work, and we do have the power. The power is within us.
I appreciate
the universal power.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your understanding that we are now going to turn everything the other way, but we need modern examples here now. And especially the disenfranchised, those who have been deliberately broken and exiled and condemned. Those are the ones that are showing us our own power.
We're coming up on the end of the hour here. And Shabana, would you like to do the closing meditation?
Absolutely. Lord God, here we are, all of us excited about the fact that we have indeed reached critical mass, and now we have new heroes who are replacing the prophets and seers of the past. Young men like the Aboriginal man and the Chinese student who stood up with intention to prove their divinity. These men were convinced of their power to bring radiation into matter. They were spiritualizing the material world, not in terms of scientific experiments, but to show that integrity prevails. Each of us here has exactly the same power. And right here, right now, we're combining our hearts to disseminate, to broadcast, to declare this power to every heart that's ready to receive it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Can I just say,
Shabana.
please? Sorry, Nanette. Can I just say, please? I haven't heard everything that's said tonight because my connection has been poor. But I've got a very important thing to say, and it could even be the most important message of all CW material, and that is: if you do not go within, you go without. Thanks.
Thank you, Angela.
It is true.
Angela, if you take over the meditation, I'll be out of a job.
No, Shabana, you do a fine job. Thank you very much for doing it. Namaste.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you, Linda, for reading, and thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.